With the 27th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Anton Harrison,
Brenton Strange, Tank Bigsby,
Ventrell Miller,
Tyler Lacey,
Yasir Abdullah,
Antonio Johnson.
How you doing, brother? Doing great. How you doing? Man, you ready to go to work?
I'm gonna do whatever I have to do for our team to win, and that's what I'm gonna do from day one to day whatever. That's how I'm gonna do it.
Everything about him, his skill set, how he fits, how he moves.
You're protecting the franchise down there in Trevor Lawrence.
Raise the eyebrows like this is a special young man.
From Kansas City to Jacksonville, the draft class for the 2023 NFL Draft for the Jags is done. The Jaguars got it done with 13 selections this year. We'll go through them all coming up on the Jaguars Draft Recap, and welcome in JP Shadrick, Brian Sexton, John Ogier, Kai Stevens coming up. But in general, Brian, a massive class, first of all.
Well, the largest in Jaguars history. There are a couple of 11-man classes. In 2020, they went to 12. This is 13. And I had somebody, I was in Kansas City for the first round, had someone go, the Anton Harrison's a good pick. It's not sexy. And I said, stop. I said, the sexy pick was in 2021. And now it's all about building the roster to support him. And that's what they did. This is a very solid class.
Yeah, sometimes you don't get dazzle in every draft if you're building a franchise the right way. And frankly, when you draft an offensive lineman and then you go after needs in the other draft that aren't, quote, starters, but play roles in a league that's often about not starters, then a lot of people go, meh. But you know what? They're not going to be going meh if the quarterback's upright and if these guys contribute in the way that the Jaguars think they're going to. The largest class in history. They didn't want that class to be that large, had a lot of trouble trading back up, but that's what they got.
Here is what they got, and of course 13 draft picks coming to Jacksonville. Starting with the 27th pick, Harrison. You see the names on the list. We'll get to them all in a little more detail coming up. But head coach Doug Peterson has some new pieces to work with. He's with Kai Stevens.
Joined by head coach Doug Peterson. We are all done with all of the picks, a lot of picks. This is your second draft. You've been here in Jacksonville. You've had a little more time to prepare rather than just kind of being thrown into the fire. You happy with what you're able to get in the last couple of days?
I am. I'm really, hats off to our scouts, hats off to obviously Trent Baalke and our GM and the work that went into, this draft and to be able to come away with 13 picks and 13 solid football players that are really, not only some of these guys are going to be starters eventually for us, but a lot of these guys are going to be really good football players that help us develop the bottom, say third of our roster. And so that's what I look for, right? I look for guys that can come in and create the competition at every position, and I think that's what we accomplished in this draft.
You took Anton Harrison in the first round. Obviously, there's a spot for him if he can earn it to be, starting right away. But he can play different positions on the offense. Is it that versatility that really sold you on him?
Yeah, and a lot of times too in your first round, you pick guys that fill a specific need, right? And so obviously he's going to come in and work over on the right side, and he'll be next to Brandon Sheriff and just solidify that spot for us. But his versatility, not only to play the left side, which he played in school, but he can also move inside and potentially play guard. So there's so many things that we can do, but we want to keep him in one spot, get him to start developing and growing in that one spot, feel comfortable there before we start moving him around.
The first three picks, fine-tuning the offense, right? You got Anton, you got a tight end, got a running back. Are you getting to that point where you feel like you have that offense the way you want it, where you can compete with some of these high-octane offenses, Kansas City, Buffalo, things like that?
Well, that's the number one thing. You look at what we did last year, and the teams that are there at the end of the season. Obviously, you look at Kansas City, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Baltimore's in that mix. I mean, you look at even around the league this year and what say the New York Jets and some of these teams are doing in the AFC. Our goal is obviously to be in the conversation at the end of the year, but at the same time, we're trying to compete and win a championship. And so, you put the best 53-man roster together that you can, and I felt like this is a step in the right direction to get us to potentially win more games in the postseason.
13 selections in the draft. You have a veteran core that's returning. How difficult is it going to be? What do you need to see out of these rookies if they want to make the team?
Well, I always challenge the rookies that the best way to get a uniform on Sunday is on special teams and really compete there. And so for a lot of these guys, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take them to come in and play a role on special teams, be a starter. And to me, 25, 30 snaps a game, as a four-core special teams player is pretty good until they work themselves into a starter role on either offense and defense. So, that's what we were able to create, I think, coming out of this draft, is just adding the depth, the talent in those positions.
Our thanks to head coach Doug Peterson. More with Kai coming up in just a moment. Well, let's get into the picks and start in the first round. The Jaguars made 2 trades to move from 24 down to 27. They had a chance to move back again, but decided to go ahead and make the selection of Oklahoma tackle Anton Harrison, and they made the phone call to the offensive lineman.
Anton, Doug Peterson, head coach, how are you?
I'm good. How you doing, Coach?
Man, we're going to sit here and make you the 27th pick of this draft. How about that?
I'm excited. I appreciate it. Yes, sir.
You ready to come to work?
Yes, sir.
Hey, we're looking forward to enjoy these next few minutes. Here's our general manager. Congratulations.
So that's the phone call. That's how it happened. Harrison is a reliable player over 3 years for the Sooners, mainly at left tackle, but guys, he fits well into both the short and long-term plans, John, for the Jaguars and the offensive line.
Well, Doug Peterson, talking to Kai, said he's going to start at right tackle. I mean, and not start, but start there right tackle, and he's going to play next to Sheriff. So it sounds to me like at the start of the season next year, Walker Little left, this kid on the right. And as you said, JP, everybody's focused on the first 4-6 games with Cam, all that stuff. But to me, this was a long-term pick, a philosophical pick of we're going to be strong and continue to replenish and be very good on the offensive line. I don't think it was a 6-game, 4-game, 1-year selection. I think it was a 4 or 5-year selection, and I think it speaks to where this franchise wants to be and where Doug Peterson. Remember how good his offensive line was in Philly? He wants strong, big guys up there. This fits that.
Right. He had a right tackle from Oklahoma, too. If you remember Lane Johnson, guy's pretty darn good.
That's right.
So I told you I was in Kansas City, got lots of questions about Juwan Taylor, and then I see the video here of Anton getting out of the car, and all I can think of is Juwan departs. Here comes the next right tackle. Football is a game of replacement. With free agency, you've got to go out and find ways to replace good football players, and it sure looks like they've done it. I think of storyline, guys. This fall is going to be, how are you going to get Cam back into the lineup? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's one of the highest paid players, if not the highest paid player on the team. And yet, if Anton comes in and plays well, and we saw how well Walker played last year at left tackle, maybe he becomes a swing tackle.
Sounds like they're going to have too many good players.
That's yes, that's right.
And I think that's, well, I'll get to it later because it's a thought on the depth of this class.
All right, let's move on to day number 2, though, and in the second round, well, the Jaguars traded back again, this time to number 61 overall, and they picked up Penn State tight end Brenton Strange, a jack of all trades for the Nittany Lions, a blocker all over the formation, lined up out wide, lined up in the backfield. He was a lead blocker as an inline tight end, utilized some in the passing game as well, but that versatility will help him take the next step.
I would say definitely my best football is ahead of me, but my strengths are I can provide a lot. I'm very versatile. You can put me anywhere on the offense and be effective. Play the Y, I play the H, and I play fullback. So you can put me in multiple different positions to be able to impact the game, and that's my best strength. And I just can't wait to be a part of the team, help us win games, and make plays for us.
His best game overall last year at Auburn for Penn State, a big win for the Nittany Lions in SEC country, a season high in catches and yards. Plus, he was the lead blocker on 2 of the biggest runs of the game against a pretty decent front 7. And this is a perfect ad, Brian, for this offense.
I heard from a scouting buddy earlier today who said 2 words describe him: smart and shifty, right? I mean, this is a guy who knows how to get open, and he understands what defenses are doing. And then he's got that run after the catch ability. I know why Doug Peterson wanted him. He wanted a guy that was that X factor. You can't account for everybody in this offense. Too many good players, right?
Doug Peterson loves 2 tight end sets, versatility, etc. Realistically, how often did we see that last year? Not very much. So this kid gives you the balance, the versatility opposite Evan Ingram. He's a different player. As Bucky Brooks said, I forget when he said it, maybe last night, this is a player who's an upgrade over what they had at the other tight end spot, gets them a chance to play Doug Peterson football.
And, I noticed a bigger smile and a little enthusiasm on the part of the head coach when he was talking about him. This is his guy.
See a lot of Auburn on your screen right now, and they'll see a little more coming up because in round number 3, 88th overall, the Jaguars head to the Plains and pick up Auburn running back Tank Bigsby, a 3-year starter for the Auburn Tigers, downhill, physical runner, one of the only constants over the last 3 years. There was some turmoil there on the loveliest village, and Tank is excited to contribute in Jacksonville however he can.
I'm going to run the ball. I'm going to catch. I'm going to block my butt off. I'm going to do whatever special teams. I'm going to do whatever I have to do for our team can win. And that's what I'm going to do from day one to day whatever. That's how I'm going to do it. That's what I'm known for, work hard, and put in the work. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to be the best version of myself.
6 foot, little over about 210, 215 pounds. Mike could put on a little bit more, John, and he'll go between the tackles. He's not afraid to go after contact, and that's really one thing this Jags offense was missing last year.
Yeah, I was asked in the O-Zone, what does this player bring that an already competitive, deep running back room that doesn't already have? Well, depth, physicality, aggressiveness, all those things you mentioned. That's what they didn't have. They were not a good short yardage team last year. This player allows you to not have ETN in the lineup, be a little bit different. You're not scared of ETN being injured now, and he gives you, I would assume, a short yardage force that you didn't have in 2022.
I think that's the first thing I saw was here was a guy who's got great patience and vision. Mm-hmm. They run a zone blocking scheme there. You can see the Jaguars run a lot of zone blocking schemes. He's obviously somebody who understands angles and finds a way to get to the point of attack.
And how much did you hold your breath last year whenever Travis was down?
Yeah, you're right about that.
You didn't know what was going to happen. This is not an 11-player on each side of the ball league. You need depth. You need players who can fill in, much like the tackles did last year. When you're able to put Walker Little in, you've got to have guys you can go to. It's a league of attrition.
Well, the first 3 rounds, offense. Now on to day number 3, and the Jaguars entered Saturday with 10 total picks. They ended up with 10 players and an additional pick in 2024 on top of it. Let's start in the 4th round, 121st overall. Florida linebacker Ventrell Miller, off-the-ball linebacker. He'll be a 24-year-old rookie in 2023. He can run. He's got that closing speed to go with it. Later in the 4th round, 130th overall, Oklahoma State defensive end Tyler Lacey, 11.5 career sacks. He missed the final 4 games last year, had a lower leg injury, but he could be kind of in the mold of DeJuan Smoot moving forward. On to the 5th round, 136th overall, Louisville linebacker and edge Yasir Abdullah. He led the ACC, 9.5 sacks a year ago. He's the son of former Florida linebacker Xavier McCray, who was on the 96 national championship team in Gainesville. 5th rounder, 160th overall, it's A&M safety Antonio Johnson, the defensive back the Jags fans were waiting on apparently on social media. A hard hitter, most of his play in the slot on the nickel, and a first-team All-SEC performer last year, Brian. And there you have it. That's the 4th and 5th round picks. And these guys will, on the defensive side, compete for spots.
Good players who performed well at big schools in Power 5 conferences. All of them look like there's a spot for them to come in and earn, right? Special teams, as we have already heard from the head coach, that's so important for guys to be able to find a job. But all of these are guys who are proven and productive, not stars necessarily, but guys who will come in and find a role.
Remember what the angst was last preseason, Brian? This team's not deep enough.
Well, they're deep now.
Well, and 2 years ago, Trent Baalke's first free agency, they signed all those free agents where you got the feeling they were trying to catch up with drafts gone bad. Well, you don't want to do that. You want to build your depth through the draft. This, to me, feels like a draft, especially this bunch we're talking about, guys in the 4th and 5th round. If you're going to be a deep team, a team that can withstand what we're talking about injury-wise, this bunch right here, this group, could be the key to that, not feeling thin in preseason anymore.
Well, how much have we talked, JP, about draft and develop? And yet the Jaguars, for a number of years, did a very poor job at drafting guys that were able to be developed. That's the thing that stood out to me. All 4 of those guys that you just showed are already good football players. Now you bring them in. They took them for traits, right? Scheme-specific traits as well, and now they've got a chance to develop these guys so that when you lose a player to free agency, you don't panic, you plug him in. And then, John, it helps you not go overspend in the free agent market, which too often has been the Jaguars' story.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, can these guys be what they hope they can be? But in order to get there, you have to have drafts like this.
Draft and develop.
Let's finish up day 3 with the 6th and 7th round picks. 6 total picks in the final 2 rounds. On your screen now, starting with Penn State wide receiver Parker Washington, Rutgers cornerback Christian Braswell, and Eric Hallett II out of Pittsburgh, a cornerback in the 6th round. In the 7th, App State guard Cooper Hodges up the road in Baker County is where he went to high school. North Carolina defensive tackle Raymond Vahasik and Houston fullback Derek Parrish, who spent most of his time on the defensive line. He'll be in the fullback running back room for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's a lot of moving parts for general manager Trent Baalke. It's his 3rd draft as GM of the Jags, and he's with Kai Stevens.
All right, I'm here with Jaguars general manager Trent Baalke. You are in a very different position this year than the last 2 years for a good reason because of the success last year. What's your immediate reaction to the class and what you were able to get?
Well, I felt very good about the group as a whole. You know, like I just said in there, you know, you work hard for a long period of time to kind of get to this point, and you know, you get a chance to pull these guys off the board, and now that they're here, they're a Jaguar. Now it's up to them to show exactly where they fit into this roster. But feel really good about the group as a whole. We know we got a bunch of good football players, and again, just looking forward to getting our hands on them and seeing how they develop.
You've got a lot of football players coming in. This is the biggest class that you've ever drafted. We looked back. You had 12 one year with the 49ers, but you got 13. I know you said yesterday if you had the picks, you were going to make the picks, but did you ever envision making this many picks?
I don't think we envisioned. We could have made 14. We actually traded one of them out to pick up a 4th rounder, I believe, next year. So we had a chance to pick one more, but we had an opportunity to get out, and we did.
You went offensive side of the ball, the first 3 picks. Was that the plan that you and Doug had going in? Is it kind of just how the board fell to you?
It's how the board fell. You know, our plan going in was to make this football team better, regardless of whether it was offense, defense, or special teams. But we stayed true to the board, and we were able to do that. And you know, again, there's no design to draft 4, or 5 offensive players in a row or whatever the number was, but it's just how it landed.
You did address the defense later in the picks. A couple more. Do you see that more as adding some depth? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of free agents hitting the team next year and kind of giving you that growth and that flexibility.
Yeah, again, once you draft them, you don't put a limitation on what they are. So if they can come in and improve the depth of the team, that's great. If they can come in and prove that they're starter-level players, that's great too. You know, so once they're picked, we forget when we drafted them. You know, whether you're the first pick in the draft or the last pick in the draft, it doesn't matter at this point. You got a seat in the locker room, you got a chair, you got a jersey. Now go determine your own value.
Thank you very much, Kai Stevens with GM Trent Baalke. So, final thoughts here. John, how'd they do?
Well, I think they did how they wanted to do, meaning, I don't know how guys are going to turn out, but I do believe this. It's best to go after the value and trust yourself. Had they been reaching, had they been acting silly in terms of how you grade these things, I think they would have probably reached for a cornerback somewhere. I think Anton Harrison at the top was the guy they wanted. It's my understanding that from about pick 12 or 13 on, that this is clearly the guy they wanted. They kept trading back. I have no problem with the trades, even though they didn't get to use them to move back up, because they didn't lose anybody doing that they wanted. So I'm fine with their approach. I have no idea how good the players will be because I never know. But all I can judge a draft on is, did you do smart things at the right time that made sense in what you want to do? I think they did.
Well, I think when you look at all of those guys they took in the 6th and the 7th round, even into the 5th, they all fit a need, right? They all fit a spot. Doug talked about, 4 core special teamers. So even though they had the extra picks in a draft that wasn't all that deep, it seems like they made the most of it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I know. They made this roster deeper. They made every position room more competitive, right? Which at some point in time will make this roster better. It'll make the Jaguars a better football team. And we heard from Doug and we heard from Trent that was the goal, to make this team better. So from that perspective, a little bit of projection, but I think just looking at it on face value, they achieved it.
And a big theme we hit on last night, JP, it really felt like the first 3 players, right tackle, tight end, and running back, are going to make this offense feel more like a Doug Peterson offense. I think that's a theme that you can't really overlook if you're judging this draft. Is it what the fans expected? No. But I think it's what Doug, I think that's why he's smiling coming out of this is, this is more like what I'm talking about.
All right, guys, well done all weekend in Kansas City as well, Brian, and glad to have you back.
By the way, they did a great job.
Yeah.
Thumbs up, Kansas City, top of the heap at this point. Detroit is next year.
Brian Sexton, John Ozier, our thanks to Kai Stevens, and thanks to our entire crew. A full team coverage here at Jaguars.com and Jaguars Productions all weekend long. Producers on radio and digital, camera folks, editing, graphics, digital social team, PR staff, football staff, everyone involved. What a weekend. 13 draft picks are coming to Jacksonville, the most in Jaguars history. There you see them on the big boards at TIAA Bank Field. Check out all our coverage throughout the weekend on Jaguars.com and the Jaguars social channels, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's it for the 2023 Jaguars Draft Recap.